though it is important for women to claim space and place that hasn't been afforded to us and hasn't, we need to claim it and not wait to be asked to the table. It's also important for men of good heart to speak in ways that affirm women's realities and to be out there saying that the way of the world that demeaned and diminished women and the way of the world that made people be small is not the way of the world for the future. And that's why I'm really excited to bring our next guest on. Barry Auchettl is known as the Blockbuster. Barry's a life visionary who's transformed his life through raising his own vibration, his inner world, and his frequency, the outer world. This is for all of you who are in the woo column. Okay, this is our woo talk. He uses kinesiology and his own unique energy method called light body alignment. He now supports people around the world, including identifying and clearing those internal things that sabotage us and the fears that sit in us that keep us from claiming our voice, to enable them to reach new levels of both vibration and frequency. So Barry, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Debbie. Tell us about what sparked your recognition that you had an important message and important work to do in the world, and what your journey in evolving that to be able now to be that blockbuster out in the world. Tell us about that journey.
Look, first of all, thank you, Gail. It's the first time I've been introduced as Mr. Wu, so that's really interesting. So I also want to acknowledge everyone here today, and I'm a real advocate for women stepping up. I believe that it is so much needed, and I believe the role of men these days should be supporting women in taking leadership roles around the world. So I just want to acknowledge everyone here. I also want to just let people know that where I came from was really fairly ordinary. I was an accounting school teacher. So could you imagine, an accounting school teacher, big thick glasses, big long beard, and really hid myself away. And it was in 1992, so we're going back now 30 years, my goodness. It was 30 years ago, I took my son to an optometrist, and this optometrist suggested eye exercises to my son. And I thought the optometrist was crazy. I thought, you can't do that. Give him a pair of glasses. Let's get out of here. I'm in a hurry. I've got things to do. But something within me must have shifted. And I can't even tell you what it was, but there was that curiosity factor that maybe there is something in this. And I went home and I started secretly experimenting on myself, because I wore glasses. When I woke up in the morning, they went off, and at the end of the night, they came on. And I started experimenting in the morning, not wearing my glasses. And I could still roughly see, I could sort of see what was going on, unless I got all emotional about it, in which case, as soon as I put my glasses on, the emotion settled down. And I thought that was really interesting. And at that point, I started recognizing this connection between eyesight and our emotions, and how sometimes our glasses can actually suppress what's actually going on, certainly within me. And I kept experimenting a little bit until 2 months later, I went back to the optometrist and I thought, I'll just see how I'm going. And I was in these multifocal glasses. And I found that since that day, I've never needed glasses for reading again. And now that got me pretty excited, all right? Because I then found out that 95% of people over 45 wear glasses. It's astounding, and no one's doing anything about it. And as an educator, I recognise a lot of optometrists would give exercises that people would do for at least 2, maybe 3 days max before they put them away. And so I started looking, what can we do to make these exercises fun so we actually do them? And that got me excited to keep going, plus the fact that I no longer needed glasses for reading. 4 months later, I passed a driver's license with 20/20 vision. And now no longer, still after 30 years, need glasses to drive in distance. Yeah, absolutely amazing. It was an amazing situation. And more important than that, it shifted how I saw life. Because I no longer saw life in the confines of just as an accountant, but it started to expand out. So I went back to the optometrist 2 weeks later, and even though I thought my life had shifted from here to here, he found that I had no peripheral vision at all. And 2 weeks later, I was operated on for a pituitary tumour. And that was the start of a whole series of major operations that I sort of undergo over a course of about 15 years. But in this particular case, they did this, the doctor rang me up and said, you need to see the surgeon by Tuesday or you'll be dead. Like that, and then put the phone down. And I can remember going there, and luckily I did a meditation just beforehand. My grandmother turned up and said, you're okay, just relax. And it was the first experience I'd ever had in a meditation where someone actually turned up. So I turned up to the doctor fairly relaxed. We've gone in, we've done the operation. And then they come back and they've said, there's still more brain tumour there. We actually have to do more evasive surgery. In other words, going through the skull, open the whole thing up and get to it. And by this stage, I was meditating every day. And this, for me, is the moment I found my voice. And I simply said, no. In actual fact, I convinced him because he said, you had to do it. You're going to have to do it anyway. And I said, well, I'm not in any hurry, really. And so I negotiated 6 weeks so that I could work on it myself. And in 6 weeks' time, I then negotiated 3 months, and I did that for several years. Now, I'll let you know, in all that time, there was no increase in this tumour that was supposed to be increasing. And yet I actually felt like a failure because I felt like as a healer now, I should be able to heal this. And I wasn't really satisfied with the situation of, maintenance, if you like. And it was only when I truly accepted the situation that I was eventually able to clear the tumour itself. And just, it didn't matter whether it was there or not. And then it was able to go. The interesting thing is a few years later in 1997, I actually left teaching and set up iPower. And iPower was about really a self-empowerment course, predominantly improving your eyesight and in the background, improving your vision of life. And the particular question I used to ask people is, what is it in life that you don't want to see? What aren't you looking at? And when people look at that, lives start to change. And my life certainly changed as well. So I went through this whole process in 97, started running the business, created all these other things. I was a fairly creative person. I created a board game and created all sorts of things around it. And then 5 years ago, I took another big step. And instead of having a business that focused on eyesight, I now have a business that focuses on vision. And so the visionschool.org, which is where I focus on now, is particularly about raising vibration and frequency for people. And when you can do that, you get to tap in to that untapped potential. And we've actually measured it through kinesiology, because I can't help myself and I measure everything. And we actually only use about 10% of our potential. And when we start to untap that 90%, life starts to change. So it's been this remarkable journey, and so far, we've just continued to expand. In 2020, I released a movie called Vision 2020, From Eyesight to Insight. And I co-starred in that, produced this movie, and it really is a combination of showcasing all these amazing people who are helping people with eyesight and vision throughout the world. So it's called Vision 2020, From Eyesight to Insight. You can just read that if you Google that sort of thing. You can read it for $2. You can have a look at it. And the intent, I was really quite exciting about that. The intent of the movie was to help people improve their physical eyesight while they watch the movie. And we've actually got testimonials back where people have done that, just by being in that atmosphere of what's going on. So it's really interesting that the way I found my voice was through my eyes. And when we can connect to each other through our eyes, we're actually connecting from a place of love. And my journey to step forward is to continue that process, to educate other people and to be open enough, not only to find their voice, but to connect to each other from that place.